I have any other nominations? In that case, can I just have a raise of hands? Those in favour of Councillor Brown?
Councillor Brown, if you'd like to take that.
Well, thank you very much, colleagues, for your confidence. I have to say, I really appreciate this first year as chairman of Higher Authority. I think we've all worked together. I did say at the start that I thought the authority ought to be non-party political. And I think through most of our work this year, that has been the case, and I very much hope that we can continue in the same vein. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you all again the ensuing year. The election of a vice chairman, item 2, ladies and gentlemen. We have a slight problem with this, in the fact that the Peterborough City elections have actually changed the situation somewhat. The situation is that the Peterborough City Council annual meeting doesn't take place until the 16th of June, when they appoint their new representatives. We have here today 3 of the existing representatives. We haven't got Jamil. Is Jamil there? No. So we have here 2 of the existing representatives, but we won't know who the other 2 are, or there may even be replacements when their council meets on the 16th of June. So we have 2 options. We can either today vote on a vice chairman currently from Peterborough, who's here, or we can defer it until our meeting on the 30th of June, when we will know who the 4 representatives are. Now, I'm completely in your hands. I'd like to hear your views as to which way you want to go. Councillor Shepherd.
I'd be very happy to defer. I think that makes most sense.
Any other view?
I think that it's quite important that we get this position filled, Mr. Chairman. And I think that Councillor John Peach has the recent time, but he's also previously spent 4 years on the Fire Authority, and I think that we need someone who has that experience of the Fire Authority to fill this position. Therefore, I think perhaps it could become academic if we have someone new join the Fire Authority, because they wouldn't suitably fill that position. So I'd like to propose Councillor John Peach be elected as the Vice Chairman.
I think we've got 2 issues here. First of all, whether we postpone the decision or whether we go ahead. If we go ahead, if we decide to go ahead, then that your proposal can stand. So I think we need first of all to take a decision as to whether we go ahead now or postpone it. Those in favour of going ahead, please. Those who want to postpone it? Right, so the proposal is that we go ahead with the election for a vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment before we start? Probably for, I don't know whether all members know, but in our constitution, it is in there that the vice chairman has to come from Peterborough City Council. I believe that is in the constitution.
It's not actually written in the combination scheme. It's a practice which we've adopted all the time to reflect the sort of partnership between Peterborough.
And the reason that I voted that we go ahead is because the simple reason that's been said before. We have 2 members in there, one that's got experience. We would probably have 2 more members come from Peterborough with no experience. I think it would make life very difficult for yourself and for the Fire Authority to have a member run the role as vice chairman with no experience at all. That is why I'm happy for it to go forward today.
Councillor Over.
I would support that entirely, and also coming from Peterborough, I would like to see Peterborough Vice Chairman installed right from the very beginning.
Okay. We have a proposal from John Beach. Is there a second?
Yes, I'd like to second Councillor Peach.
Councillors. Are there any other nominations? In which case, I declare Councillor Peach elected. Okay, so we've sorted that one. Item 3 is apologies.
Yes, I have apologies from Councillor Sales and Councillor Netzinger.
Item 4 is the minutes of the meeting on the 13th of February, which have been circulated in the agenda. Should we just run through page by page, just to questions of accuracy and comment? Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So there being no comment, may I sign the minutes as a correct record, please?
Yeah.
Item 5 is Chairman's announcements. I wonder if you just give me 3 or 4 minutes just to say a few things. I'd like to welcome Sandra here again today. She's been out of action with an operation. Sandra, it's really good of you to come on, and I hope you're on the mend. Sadly, I want to pay a tribute, but I didn't want to pay a tribute, I'm going to have to Janet Goodwin, who lost her seat in the Peterborough City election. Janet was a great vice chairman, and she really took her commitments to authority very, very seriously indeed, and gave a lot of time and effort, and was keenly interested. I think we're all going to miss Janet for her enthusiasm, which was quite infectious at times, wasn't it, actually? And it is my intention to write to her on behalf of the authorities to thank her for her work, and I hope we all agree. Thank you very much. Again, I said earlier on, thank you to everybody in the authority for the work in the previous 12 months. I really have enjoyed it, and I hope you have too, and let's hope that this year can be as interesting. One of the things that we did between us was to actually go out and meet some of the frontline staff in the last year. There was opportunities to do so, which many of us took with alacrity. And actually, I think some of the frontline staff were quite surprised that councillors were going out to meet them and to talk to them and to listen to what they had to say. I think that's been very successful. I think working together is really so much better, and we can understand what firefighters have to do, how they work, and I think it's creating a sense around the authority that working together is the best possible way to find out what is going on. And that's something that I want to continue. I think I've got round about 75% of the stations, and I've still got a few to go, which we'll try and finish off fairly shortly. I also want to thank the area commanders and the watch commanders for all the work that they've done. And also the SMT, who I've worked with quite closely, or very closely indeed. We mustn't forget the media and comms team as well, who do so much for us. And also the support staff here at Hinchinbrook and at Charlehall, people like Michelle, who do so much to keep us going. Over the past 12 months, I've tried to build some rapport with the union leaders, and I think quite successfully. I've enjoyed listening to their views. We've had various exchanges and conversations, and I hope that will continue. I'm sure it will. And apart from that, I think we have to look to the future, which is in some ways a little uncertain, with the spending round coming up in a year's time, and the way the fire service is going. I'm a firm believer that we now have to think about the future of the fire service, bearing in mind that the 12-13 figures, I think, showed something like a third of drop in the call-outs, which really means something. I think you've all been successful in doing the work of reducing call-outs. Now we have to find ways of making the authority as relevant as we can, and to make sure that the firefighters are given good roles to do. So they're my comments, my announcements. Thank you all very much, and I suggest we get on with the formal business of the meeting. Unless there's anything else? No? Right. Declarations of interest, please. Councillor Smith.
Just in case, for item number 11, I have been very recently appointed to the planning committee for Northstowe, but I've taken no part so far and no part in this agreement here, or any possible agreement.
Thank you.
So I'm not leaving here.
Anybody else? No? Thank you. Item 7, pension amendment orders. I'm going to pass you over to the finance. Well, I think it's going to have a very busy afternoon.
Thank you, Chairman. Pension amendment order, affecting legislation has been changed. The paper in front of you has been through the policy committee already, and under their delegated terms of reference, they were able to approve the first 3 recommendations that you're noting today, but I'll take you through those anyway so you understand what the changes have been, and I'm asking the authority, which wasn't within your gift, is to approve the final bullet point on page 1. If I take you through the amendments and the impact, or not, I may attack. In terms of the first change, there's 3 significant changes. The first change with regard to commutation. So when a firefighter retires, if they retire at the moment before they're 55, but haven't done their full service, then their lump sum, if you like, is reduced. What this was doing was giving us the discretion that if we wanted, we could ensure they still left with the full lump sum. However, there was going to be a cost to the authority on that basis, and what the authority committee agreed at that point was actually no. We wouldn't want to do that at this stage. We may want to revisit it in the future, but certainly right as it stands at the moment, we don't need any additional costs. So they approved that we go with what we're doing at the moment, which basically is start early, you get a reduced so that really is the first one, and that's you can see that in more detail in paragraph 6.4. There's costing there that works through it and showing the impact it may have had if we were going down the discretionary route. Again, the policy committee approved that we stay as we are. The second one with regard to discretion was around temporary allowances. Now what happens is often people are temporary promoted. Now in the past, if you were temporary promoted for a short period of time, and if it was in the last 3 years of your employment, that temporary promotion would go towards your final pension figure, and that would be paid forever. As soon as you retire, that's paid forever. And what the pension amendment order does is takes that provision away. Effectively says that actually temporary promotions will not now count towards a final salary pension. If you do it for a certain period of time, then you could get, if you like, rewarded for that small period of time. But in reality, it's going to be a small amount of money, and the administration of that would be a burden to us. So what we, again, what the policy agreed was actually why would we want to apply that discretion when again it's going to cost the authority money forever in the day as well to top the pensions up. So we effectively agreed that actually we won't be using those temporary promotions to incentivise the final pension that anybody would get. So that's the first two. The final one is a little bit more an abatement. Hopefully you all remember the word abatement. So when somebody leaves the authority as a serving fire officer, if they were to come back in either in the same role or in in a support role, what they can't do is their combined earnings and pension can't be any more than what they were earning before. Okay? And what this is saying is previously, you used to be able to come back as a support person, as an example, if you were in a uniform post, and actually your pension wouldn't have been abated because they were a separate scheme. What this is now saying is, no, you can come back as a support person, but we're going to consider that in terms of the calculation, and if you still breach that, your pension will be cut. So, this is a public pension scheme, effectively, you have two bites of the cherry. So, what I'm asking for approval today is that actually we do go with those new rules, and we say actually if you come back to support person, if you combine salary and pension, breach that previous salary figure, then you will be abated and your pension will be reduced appropriately. Okay, that's the introduction. Any questions?
Councillor Sheldon.
Just clarification, when you say that the pension is abated, I assume that's only for the period of the additional service?
That's correct.
So then you revert after?
Yeah. So as soon as you leave, your pension goes back up to what it should be.
Councillor Ashton.
Presumably, with the abatement, if someone is now reduced to only being able to earn 15,000, does that mean they will work pro rata to that?
Not necessarily. They could choose to work up pro rata to that, but it would be down to the individual to make that decision. So, as an example, if you're earning £35,000 before you left the service, you come back and your pension is 17.5, and you chose to earn 15, fine, you won't be abated. If you came back and earned 25, then your pension would be abated from the £7,500 or whatever it was. Effectively to bring it back down so you don't earn any more.
That potentially means that good officers returning to work after retirement might opt to work shorter hours, which means you're losing the benefit of that expertise.
It could mean they choose to work shorter hours. It could mean that. That's what it is.
Councillor Owen.
Thank you. Two questions, Chair, if you will allow me. The first one is that at the last Fire Authority meeting, I asked for the numbers of fire officers who were in the 3 different pension schemes, and I didn't get that. It may have been sent to me, but I was without iPhone or iPad for 3 weeks due to a virus, so if I didn't get it, if I did get it and I've not seen it, I apologise, but if I didn't get it, please can I have it?
I'll resend that.
Thank you. Yeah. The next thing is regarding page 20, and this is additional amendments.
Yeah.
Removal of rule B1, bracket 2, bracket B, bracket 84. And it says to secure the permission. The Department has proposed to remove this rule which requires Chief Fire Officers to secure the permission of the Fire and Rescue Authority. Don't like this idea of secure permission. It might be an idea though to think about having something where Chief Fire Officers discuss their future with the Fire Authority. And if we go right to the end of the agenda and we come to agenda item 10, page 3, section 1, general procedures and guidelines. This looks like it applies to everybody, and I would like it considered, discussed, whether it also applies to chief fire officers, hence getting over this idea of anybody requiring permission for retirement or anything like that.
If I may, in terms of the additional amendments, what this was retirement part of the pension, pension regulation, which meant that Graham, if he was to retire, having done 30 years before the age of 55, he would have to come to you and say, look, I want to go now, I've done my time, I want to go. With regard to the final point, what is effectively get contracts of employment, Graham's on 12-month notice period, so effectively he would have to come and have that discussion with you, weighing the file, give us enough time to be able to approve and make sure that we can fill in the chief fire officer or chief officer vacancy effectively. So we've got the provision through the contract of employment rather than through the pension.
Okay. It's just I feel it's a bit patronising when we start talking about chief officers or any officer asking permission to be able to retire.
And I think that's probably why they removed it from the regulation.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Madam Chair. There's been a lot of, sorry, affect me as an individual, but there are officers who have done their 30 years and reached the end of their pension, and their pension is thus accruing
Yes.
no more, but they're still paying into it. And they've approached their fire authorities who have said, no, you can't go till you're 55. They may have another 3 or 4 years potentially left to do. And that's been deemed by the department now as being unfair.
Yes.
So that's why that clause is being removed.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Bywater.
Thank you, Chair. Matthew, just a couple of questions really, which refer back to point 6 on page 4. And in the last couple of sentences it says, authority should maintain existing arrangements but prudence within discretion. Should there be a requirement to reduce staffing levels at a more extreme rate? I noticed in the paper that the word discretion is used a lot there. And I'd like to pick up on points, and I've done it in the past, that do we have a definition for this word discretion, and what does it actually mean, and how it's going to be applied? And also on point 2.1, where we're looking at the recommendations, note that all temporary allowances are treated as non-pensionable. Is there a danger that when we've got senior officers who are coming towards the end of their retirement, that we just put them on a temporary contract as a promotion as opposed to a full-term contract to save money, and obviously that would disencourage people to get promoted really, and then we've got a problem with promotion.
I think the reason why, well, first point about discretion, the main point of this is I'm saying we don't use it at the moment and we come back in the future, and if we choose to use that discretion, certainly in terms of, worst case scenario, and this is hypothetical, we have to lose those 30 officers next year for whatever reason. On that basis, we want to do it quickly, and at that point I'd say, okay, well, the easiest route for us, what's going to cost the authority, the only way we can do it, to balance our budget, would be to go down the route of paying people early, if you like. So that would be the only scenario I can imagine where we come back and say, we're going to have to use some discussion here. In terms of the second point around temporary promotion, interestingly, I think it's almost the reverse of what you said that's happened in the past, whereby people have been temporarily promoted across the fire service in the last 3 years of their career to ensure they get a pension, if you like, and then that's paid forever and a day. And what the government are trying to do here is say, actually, no, we don't want those temporary promotions happening for 6 months when somebody's only got 6 months to do. Actually, we want them to go through a proper promotion process, and they get the job permanently. If they get it permanently, fine, they'll get it on their pension. But it's to stop those just to make it more transparent.
Anybody else? No? Right, in that case, if we can turn to the page 1 and to the recommendations 2.1, the 3 bullet points. Can I take it that you're all in favour? Agreed. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No? Thank you very much. We now go to item 8, the fire authority annual report, which is the white paper. Matthew, it's you again, please.
Thank you. There's a requirement, part of the national framework, that all fire rescue services produce an annual report and a statement of assurance that effectively gives, hopefully gives you confidence that we are doing everything we have achieved, and we are doing everything we should have done in the last 12 months. Is for you to approve this document, and it's still subject to a full proof screen. And we have made some amendments. It has been through policy committee again for their comments. There were a number of comments that were made as part of that process. Certainly Councillor Nessinger asked for additional information to be put within the report, certainly around our RMP targets, which start at page 16 and 17. She asked for some graphical representation of how we're actually doing against those targets as well. So you can see on page 17, just as an example, accidental dwelling fires, we had an IRMP target which is in pink. Hopefully yours are all in colour. We hope to be at 398 for dwelling fires in any one year, or certainly by the end of 2014-15. 2013-14, we're at 227, so you can see there's been some significant reduction in those fires. We haven't given a graph for every single measure because it would have been 100 pages long. So we've drawn out what we see as the significant measures. In addition, Councillor Mention would also asked for, there was some questions around what a near miss was and why recording increasing the near misses was good. And we've actually put a case study on page 30, we've put an additional case study in there, hopefully so it explains to the reader what a near miss is and why it's useful for us to gather as much information around near misses as possible. So that's in there as well. Other than that, really, any comments around how it reads, if you think you've missed anything, then we'll get it all nicely proofread, and then we'll have it signed. A little bit more professional. It won't be distributed to everybody as a hard copy. We're going to keep it as an electronic copy, and then we'll have a few copies of it produced on our website. But really open up to any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. I assume that all members have read the document, so therefore perhaps there's no need to go through it actually page by page, but I'm sure you've all got some comments to make. So, Councillor Peterborough.
I was very pleased to read on page 26 about the community safety excellence, and I read in our paper only this morning in Peterborough about some stuff you've been doing with local schools and local groups and all that, so to commend you on that and to say I'm pleased that in, because it's probably sometimes a bit of work that the fire authority do that doesn't get an awful lot of publicity, and it's well worth doing and good for overall fire safety. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Rivers.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to pick up on that. Now, in the minutes of the last meeting, there was this question brought up from the union, or at least a statement saying that we were one of the slowest attendance times in the country. But looking at this, I don't get that impression. I was just wondering if you could explain why the union seem to feel that we're not doing very well, but this actually shows that it's not doing that badly.
Which one of the essentially
Just
is
one thing,
Those targets, obviously the union has a particular view for a particular reason about attendance standards. The attendance standards here in Cambridgeshire really haven't changed significantly over the 10 years that I've been here. We constantly seek to improve them where we can. But fundamentally, we still have the same number of fire stations and the same number of fire engines attending roughly the same, a declining number of calls. So the standard that we achieve and the target we set is there to try and make us continually improve, but slightly. The historical targets, and they're the targets that we've always met, and they're the targets that I would envisage us moving into the future. So whether or not we are significantly slower than, for example, London, fire brigade in a big urban area, I would imagine we're very similar to the areas of rurality that reflect Cambridgeshire. But they are what they are, and our fire death rates and our injuries in fires are pretty low, and are not necessarily reflective of low or long attendance standards, because it's very difficult to say how many people, because we have a low number of fatalities, exactly how many people would perish if we got there quicker. It's very, very difficult to say that. So we could decrease those attendance times significantly, for example, if we decided to deploy another 3 or 4 whole-time stations in strategic areas around Cambridgeshire, but there'd be very little work for them to do, and it would be very, very expensive. So that's very much an authority-based decision about how it determines to mitigate risk. And at the moment, we do what we've been doing for many, many years with our stations where they are, and those are the targets that we meet. When we say we try and improve upon them, that's by sort of call handling and those sorts of things, having people in the right place at the right time. But very difficult to make inroads because of what's happening in the traffic situation as well.
But that you are actually reasonably happy with things as they are at the moment.
We'd always like to do better, but am I reasonably happy? Yes.
Can I just add something? We did have some work done on this 2 years ago by the company ORH, because our attendance times seemed to be increasing slightly, and the primary reason they came up with was that there had been a shift in incidents from the hold time stations to the rural on-call stations. And the main reason for that was that actually it was believed that our fire prevention had been so successful in the more urban areas that we were getting fewer incidents in the urban areas, and therefore the time that the incidents were now moving into the rural places, where obviously the on-call stations have got an attendance time which is 5 minutes. So there was no, that was the reason why our incidents were taking longer to attend. So it wasn't anything to do with where our stations are or anything like that. It's actually the success of our personnel in driving down fires in the more urban areas.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. This is really one for Matthew. On page 36, the income, I did find initially the negative 2.8% income a little bit difficult to understand, but that I take is really expenditure that's being put in there. Expenditure in terms of the transfer to capital reserves.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So we can make that clearer.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm not sure if anyone else found that
no, I'll make that
a little confusing, but.
It's the 500, yeah, 588, so I'll make that clear.
Councillor Ash.
Yeah, page 37, the summary of how you spent. There's some impressive savings in there, but the one that fascinates me is under the supplies and services, just above the total. Other supplies and services, you have saved a massive amount of money on that. How's that been done?
That actually isn't say what we did last year. We saved a lot of our money early in terms of the savings that we had to make. So what we did, we put it into that one supplies and services bucket, if you like. And what we've done, if you see, should see it further down, you can see the great big spend against step charges, 1.5 million, which is the opposite direction. Effectively what we've used that money to buy new fire appliances. So effectively it's just on a different line, because I can't, the way the accounting works, I can't show it in the same one. To show it.
So I'm less impressed than I was.
You are, yeah. No, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it's not so impressive really, is it?
Anybody else? Councillor Wilson.
Can I ask, you mentioned during the report about the Tottenham and Burwell, and I believe that at the last project board meeting you were bringing the decision to the fire authority for the name. Is that?
We haven't. We were going to, and we haven't. So we do need to bring it back. It does still need to come back to the fire authority for a formal approval of what we're going to name Burwell and Tottenham. Yeah. So if it's time critical, which it would be at that point, if we can bring it back to the meeting, and if it goes ahead on the 30th.
Bring it to the meeting on 30th.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Giles.
A couple of points. One is the breakdown of time spent, 27, on different prevention activities. How does this compare to, say, last year? Are we putting more resources into different activities, or is there a way of collating that?
We can certainly compare categories with what we put in last year. We've changed the website here, we've changed some of the headings. One of the things we've done with intervention is get far more focused about the work we do. So general fire safety advice, we've now moved away to more specifically focusing in the areas where the risk is most. So if you look at the figures that show our biggest issues around deliberate fires, arson, you see that correlates with the majority of time spent trying to reduce that particular risk area. So what we're trying to show there is actually where our risk is the highest correlates to that's where we're spending most of our time trying to address it. But certainly compared to last year's report, and give you some idea about whether where we've shifted, if that would be helpful.
Yes, yeah, I think if it's an ongoing, it shows trends as well. And the other one is probably on page 11 and 10, the photos, which has already been mentioned. I'm quite happy with my son's page. However, on page 11, this Director of Resources, Matthew Warren.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It would take
Maybe
maybe 14.
whoever's responsible to sort of make me slightly younger.
Yeah, I don't know where that photo came from. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else like to? I think this is a very positive report. It is warts and all, but I'm a bit disappointed that it can only go online, but I can understand why. I just wondered, Chief, whether we might get comms to look at perhaps a shorter version that we can use when going out outside of fire authority to actually commend the work that we've been doing. I just don't think that people see it for the work you put into it. It doesn't go far enough, and I'd like to see, without incurring too much expense, trying to find a way of promoting it.
I'm sure I'll talk to the head of media and communications. I'm sure we can put something together that's a highlight report. The reason it's like this and the reason it's called an assurance statement is because government requires us to publish an assurance statement. But it certainly doesn't all need to be there. I can certainly do a small version of highlight points, I'm sure.
Thank you. In that case, we need to approve the report. Asking those in favour? Anybody against? In that case, we now move on to item 9, the 5-year blueprint from 2014 to 19 on your pink sheets. Matthew?
One's on white.
Sorry, yes.
Thanks, gentlemen. Okay, in terms of the corporate priority for last year, it was actually around the service redesign program, which I think was spoken about well. I think members are all well aware of what we've done and what we've achieved in terms of being head of the care with our savings program. So really what I was going to focus on, and happy to take any questions, is really the future. Every year, as a senior management team, we go through a process of looking at legislation, various things that are on the horizon, and actually bring it all together into what we call a 5-year blueprint. And it's quite detailed in the first year, as you can see. It gets a little bit hazy as we go further out, notwithstanding there's going to be a change, or possibly a change of government in terms of election next year. So that's the rationale for it. We really try and just give ourselves I suppose a route map really against where we want to be over that 5-year period. So happy to go through that in as much detail as we want. And then we really focus down on the 12 months, the next 12 months in question. And you'll see right at the very last page on Appendix 2, there's 3 key priorities that we have earmarked for next financial year, which is what I'd like to do for today. Priority 1, probably no continued service improvement under the banner of service improvement. There's 4 bullets to do that. One you're aware of, which is the tactical delivery group, PDG, as it's now known, and with ongoing negotiations around that. We clearly want to work out well that's as effective as it possibly can be. We continue to look at investing in our operational technical equipment. We want to be at the forefront. We want to provide all of our operational crews with the best possible equipment they can have. And certainly one aspect of that this next year will be the new uniform, new PPE, as it's called. So we're working hard on that now, and really looking at There's done a lot of work over the last 3 years. It's still a challenge. We still have problems recruiting. We certainly have problems retaining on-call staff. To really help, what can we do to really enhance that service as much as we possibly can? So that's really a continued service improvement. Quite a strong, very strong operational focus there. And hopefully you'll support us in doing that over the next 12 months. We came to the next CSR. We know what battle we've got over the next 18 months, and we're relatively comfortable where we're at the moment. It's beyond that really, so we're looking at beyond financial year 2015-16, when clearly we probably won't hear anything certainly until well past May next year. So that is a focus. We're starting to plan, we're starting to look at our routes, our structures and everything again, but again, it's just really that clean sheet of paper. And the final one is around workforce development, and we've spoken quite a lot in terms of succession planning, and this is the strand that this comes into. We've got a workforce development strategy now, which is being led by Rick and Sam Smith as HR, and really we're looking to put that into operation now and working up what we can to ensure that we can effectively fill vacancies that come up and start the succession plan effectively and develop it effectively as well in the future. So those are the three key areas that we want to look at over the next 12 months, and then we'll take any questions.
Councillor Butcher.
Yes, Matthew, on your priority 3, recruitment, induction and training of whole-time firefighters, I can remember a few years back when I was here that you couldn't get a job as a whole-time firefighter because there was a waiting list. Are we having problem getting whole-time firefighters now? I know on-call is still a problem, but whole-time?
No. This is the first time, this year is the first time we've run a whole-time campaign for many years actually. So this is really around us running that whole-time campaign and making sure we get the bums on the seats in a timely manner. We're going through the process at the moment. Neil will be able to give more detail, but we hope to have them in September for training, or send them away for training.
So we have no problem recruiting whole-time?
Nope.
If anything, the problem is trying to keep the numbers down rather than keeping the numbers high. It's in order to make it possible for us to do a decent recruitment campaign and selection process.
If we can't take them on as whole time, I presume you point them that there is a what do you want to say, retaining an on-call that they could probably go to for in between?
We have quite a rigorous on-call recruitment programme, and people are always reminded of it. But obviously you need to live within the catchment area, which is only 5 minutes from the station, so there are restrictions on that. But yeah, we've got quite a rigorous process for recruitment of on-call. Something we're always looking to improve, isn't it?
Thank you.
One of the things I want to ask you, we were talking about transition and forward planning. I haven't talked to the other groups yet, but I was talking to the Conservative group just before lunch, and we were saying that most of us are all here, God willing, another 3 years, and we'd like to be part of that process and to help that process. So I wonder if we can formulate a way of doing that, whereby we have a really good say and to help in any way we can.
Yeah, well, we've got the workforce development strategy group that meets. So, I mean, one way of doing it would be to appoint a lead member that sits within that group and they report back, or we can perhaps think of another solution for you that works for everybody, really.
Thank you.
We can certainly make something work.
Thank you. Any other comments, please? In that case, can we go back to recommendations 2.1? Approve the 5-year blueprint and corporate priorities. There's no achievement against 2013-14 corporate priorities.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Now go to item 10. Matthew, please, on revised retirement policy.
You're all familiar with this policy. So really, the focus the only area I want to focus on is actually around the engagement and making sure that we have sufficient time throughout the organisation if anybody does want to apply for re-engagement. And really what that means is that in the original policy it was stated that we should do it if somebody was interested in re-engagement then we should do it in 3 months. You know, clearly for some people their contracts of employment mean that their notice period is longer than 3 months, so we need to make sure that it reflects that as a minimum, and what we're suggesting is that it actually goes beyond that, and that we look at 3 months, 6 months and 12 months, depending on where the individual sits within the organisation, to give us both time to plan and consider. And actually, if it misses, it could miss a cycle, a meeting cycle, which means that then we're running out of time, and it gives us time to organise meetings if it were to be certainly a chief officer again. So really just making that practical step to make sure that we can manage the process as we need to in the future. And that's really the amendment I'm seeking today.
Any wish to comment? Could I just say, which I should have said at the start of the meeting, I missed it in my note, that you should know that Area Commander Maurice Moore has retired and is taking re-engagement. We've always said that we would announce these as a matter of practice and of openness and transparency. So could you just record that in the minutes, please, Michelle? Thank you. So we've done a revised retirement policy. We've noted. Yeah. That's all we need to do with that. We need to approve it. Approve it. All those in favour, please. Approved. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Councillor Lloyd?
No.
Okay.
I was looking for something else.
Item 11, Northstowe Development. Rick.
Yeah, the paper posted today, so the Bureau 6, as many will be aware, around our ambitious agenda to influence the built environment and the level of growth in terms of residential and other policies that we speak to area, to ensure that the future developments within this area are both sustainable and, more importantly, make residents safer. What we're looking for today is just approval from yourselves to continuing with some very helpful discussions that we've had around the Northstowe development. Members will be aware Northstowe is an area of planned development within South Cambridgeshire around the area Oakington site. It will be in 2 phases, to make sure Councillor Smith will correct me if I get the details wrong. The first is around 1,500 homes, which starts late this year, with completion due around the end of 2015. The second phase, which is perhaps of more interest to us as an authority, given the paper, will see an additional 3,500 homes. It is dependent upon the A14 upgrade and is scheduled for around 2018. Now, with a development of this size, what will traditionally happen is a sum of money will become available to the authority through Section 106 for the potential to build a new fire station given the size of that development. Now, although that money will see the build of the fire station without any impact in terms of the authority, once we have that station, we then have the ongoing revenue costs and difficulties at times in terms of being able to recruit for and maintain that station. And so what we are seeing the opportunity to do is potentially look to see whether we could use that 106 money that is assigned for fundamentally reducing fire risk in a different way, to suggest that actually that money is earmarked instead to fit residential sprinklers to the areas most at risk, as sort of social housing. And we know that around 40% of that development will become assigned towards affordable housing. It gives us an opportunity to do that. The benefits as we see are twofold. One, for us, it means that actually we can reduce risk within the built environment and within the design of the building. It means that actually the cost doesn't fall to the authority in terms of the station that we have to accrue and maintain into the future, and the additional money can be given back into the Northstowe development to enable communities to go to spend money towards that area. What it doesn't do is preclude a fire appliance from being put into Northstowe in the future, should the risk or the authority dictate that that's what it wishes to do, nor does it potentially prevent us having a station there, because the opportunity does exist, of course, to co-locate with partners in the Northstowe area, such as the police, etc. It does give us an opportunity to look at doing things slightly different with that money, rather than just having an additional asset into the portfolio. Matthew and I both had initial discussions with HCA, who are the owners of the land, and also some provisional conversations with South Cambs District Council. And the appetite is there to consider looking at this in a little bit more detail about how it could work for a number of parties. One of the key parties that we would need to engage with, and we continue to try to do so, are housing associations. This would go into their property portfolio, and therefore we would need to make sure they're comfortable with this type of thing moving forward. But nevertheless, we feel that it's important the authority is cited on it, and it's important that you feel comfortable that we continue to have those discussions. But we come back to this authority for any final determination is made around how that money may or may not be assigned.
Thank you. Would you like to comment? Councillor Owen.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think the use of sprinklers, and I'm not an expert in this matter at all, is an excellent move forward. I'm just curious about why social housing and not all housing.
Very good question. In Utopia, we would like to see them fit to all homes. There's a cost implication, and there's also one about where we can influence. So in terms of the domestic dwellings that are purchased by individuals, that very much becomes a choice, I guess, that individuals want to make when they purchase their home, whether they wish to see sprinklers fitted within them. Certainly house builders will see that as an additional cost that they would need to bear in terms of placing sprinklers into those homes. The social housing, which is due to the way that the makeup of those homes are, and our evidence suggests that those people are at higher risk of fire. So rather than going for a blanket approach, which fire rescue services have tried for the last 10 years, with not too much success, we feel a more targeted approach towards social housing where we can engage with a number of housing associations to influence them. It might be a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Chair. Just a supplementary. Would it be possible that as local plans come up for renewal, that the fire service could try to influence the district council, the planning authorities, to actually put in a requirement that every house should have a sprinkler system, and not then ask for Section 109 or sole money for fire stations or extra equipment or anything like that, but just put it in to the planning obligations that every house and every commercial property will have sprinklers.
We've gone down that line, Cato. We've met all the local authorities to share a document that the authority will have seen, and if members wish to see it again, and then sign it, our building safe document, which we produced the first fire rescue service to do so, which sets out our ambition in terms of what we want to see in the built environment, not only to make the public safer, but also to make our firefighters safer when they attend those incidents. The difficulty we have is that there is no statutory implement to put sprinklers into domestic premises, and despite a number of years of lobbying with central government, there is no desire by the current minister to give that statutory implement. Therefore, the way we need to do it is through influence and talking with local authorities, developers, and other stakeholders. So we are trying to take that approach, and again, any support members can give us in the end.
Thank you. Councillor Butcher.
Yeah, Rick, I'm just concerned about what you said about the 106 monies. I think you said that if you didn't use it for what it was specified for, a new station or something else, it would go back in the pot for use of the development. But from my experience of 106, it's named what a 106 has to be spent on, and if it's not spent on that, then the developer can keep it. It doesn't go and be spent somewhere else. So I'm just concerned that how we work this.
Yeah, I think that's part of the provision, Councillor Butcher. We want to continue the negotiations or the discussions to see about how we may do that. It may be that we wish to take the entire money and apply all to sprinklers in certain areas, but I'm conscious of the point actually that we want to make sure it's spent on community good.
Because developers would soon take it back.
Councillor Rylance.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wholehearted in favour of sprinklers, but I would want to know where is the nearest fire station? Is it whole time or part time? What is the response time to a place like this going to be? If we don't have a station on the Woodstock side.
Absolutely, we will make sure that we get all that information when we share it, that we need to provide further determination.
Councillor Shannon.
3 quick points, if I may. The cost of fitting sprinklers, both new and retrofitting after completion of build. Are you having similar discussions at Brampton? And I think I heard you say that if it was subsequently decided that we needed a fire station and we have one, would the land be reserved at this time, or would it need to be reserved at a later stage?
In terms of build cost, it's roughly about 1% of the build cost for the sprinklers. So very similar to the gas gun. It's similar. Retrofit is slightly more expensive. I can give you the figures of council similar if you wish. I think the other point you raised is all about the further discussions that we would need to have about how that would work. I guess the thing I was trying to stress was that just because we don't necessarily say we're going to build a fire station doesn't mean that in the future we can't have fire service resources in that area in the form of a fire engine, or we could co-locate with other services if we chose to in the future. Initially, of course, there'd be a small outlay to do so.
The question would be, is there space on their pre-existing premises, but it's not a small vehicle?
Councillor, from my very early discussion some years ago when Northstowe was just being talked about, there was a very clear indication at that point that there would never be any intention for the 3 blue line emergency services to have separate buildings. That there would be an expectation that, as we tried in Cambridgeshire but failed, that there would be a single building that we shared revenue. So it is possible, because I appreciate this. If the risk looks like it might be a good idea, someone has to push the envelope and try these things. But there is a risk attached to it. So as an authority, we may well choose to say, actually, when you build that fire station, we'd like you, or you build that emergency services station, we'd like there to be a space. We're not necessarily sure we'll fill it, but we might be able to contribute to that and see how but these are decisions for the authority. When we bring some real data, we have no idea how much Section 106 money would actually be available at this stage either.
So, Brampton?
More discussions about Brampton.
Okay. Anybody else? No? In that case, can we move to the recommendation, please? 2.1, the Fire Authority was asked to approve further discussions with the HCA and others regarding Are you happy about that? Yes. Anybody against? Thank you. Item 12, appointments to committees. Michelle.
Yes, Chairman. The proposal is that this item be deferred. As the Chairman has already mentioned, Peterborough City Council will not be having their annual council meeting until the 16th of June, which means that we can't effectively work out the proportionality for each of the committees until we know who Peterborough are actually going to be appointing. So it's therefore proposed to hold a special meeting of the Fire Authority on the 30th of June to consider this item and any other time-critical items. I think I've got at least 3 other time-critical items now, including that one, so hopefully that will give us a reasonable meeting.
Thank you very much.